All right, welcome back everyone to the Mo Money, Mo Problems podcast, the podcast dedicated to the trials, triumphs, and insights of green industry business owners. I'm your host, Matt Foreman, and today we've got Megan Lowe, founder of Megan Lowe Landscape Design out in Carlsbad, California. Megan's been running her own landscape design business for over 8 years now, working with homeowners throughout North County, San Diego, and she's built an impressive reputation while doing it all as a solo operator. So, Megan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. So, I like to kind of start from the beginning. So, I know it's probably going to be pretty broad, but before this became a career and eventually like your own business, where were you and how'd you get to where you're at now?
So, I started my adult working life in restaurants, and then it quickly transitioned into mortgages because that was our family business. And I worked for her. My sister and I both worked for her for years. It was great, fun. And then in a matter of 2 years, I lost my mom tragically, unfortunately, at a young age. And I had 2 children, little babies, and the mortgage meltdown all happened within about 2 years. So it was no longer fun. It was stressful. I was working for a bank that got bought out by another bank, and the second bank was super conservative. I was 100% commission sales, and it was, you get all these leads and get people qualified and get people into escrow, and then the loan was denied. And so it was really hard, and I just wanted to stay home with my kids. Really, at the end of the day, I wanted to be a mom. So it was a hard decision because I had always worked, but I felt like I was giving up my mom's, book of business, which was also a hard decision. But I put that aside and stayed home with the kids for a few years. And then they got a little older. They got into school. And I just thought, well, I know I'm going to want something to do when they get a little bit older. I was a young mom. I had them when I was 25 and 26. So I knew there was an end point to, little kids. And so I'd always been interested in gardening. I always loved being outside, but I wasn't very good at it. And so I just did some research online, and I found that our very local community college had a great horticulture program, and they had a class. It was like Tuesday nights from, 5 to 8 or something, and it was Introduction to Careers in Horticulture. And so it was great timing. I just would put dinner in the crock pot for the fam and say, okay, Dad, you're on. And I had my own night, and it was like opening up a whole new industry and a whole new world. And so that kind of started my journey. I took 1 class per semester for like 4 years and got my landscape architecture degree. And in that process, I met lots of people. In an irrigation class, I met a contractor who said, I need you to help me design this area in front of a wall. And I said, well, I'm not a designer yet. And he said, sure you are. Yeah, you're good. Let's go. Let's do it. So he gave me my first 3 clients, all kind of in this Del Mar Heights area, which was like a lot of the people had lived there for 20, 25 years. They'd had their landscapes established, but were aging out. The kids were out of college. They'd made a ton of money on their real estate, and they wanted to update. There was just a lot of people in that area in that kind of same position. They wanted to update their landscaping. So I had multiple women referring me to other women, and I had a bunch of clients in this neighborhood, and it was fantastic. So I got a lot of experience, and that's kind of how it all started. So that was my first few clients, and from there it's just been referrals and lots of learning and building relationships, and yeah, so it was really great because I was able to build it slowly over time as my kids grew, and now they're both out of the house. I mean, they're bouncing back and forth, but as they do when they're young adults, but so it's been great that I've been able to kind of build my business slowly as I've been able to take on more work and just having the capacity to transition out of everyday mom stuff and into, more career stuff. So it's been so fun. I love it. It's so rewarding. I love working with people and seeing gardens come to life.
I love it. So during this journey, how do people typically find you now?
So now I've recently heard from people that ChatGPT is telling them to find me.
How cool.
So I know, my husband told me about probably 5 years ago to create a Google business page and to get reviews. And that has been the single best thing I ever did. I built my own website, and I do not know what I'm doing. I am low tech. I want to be out in the dirt. But I just didn't want to spend a lot of money on it, so I just kind of built it on one of those like Wix platforms. But of course, like I get emails every day that say, you're not optimizing your SEO and your, keywords and whatever. So whatever. I've always been all referrals and I've never advertised. So it's fine. I'm busy. I'm as busy as I want to be generally. That comes and goes, but I do have a family and blessed that I'm not the primary breadwinner. So happy that I can have a little bit of balance in my life. But that was probably the best thing that I did because when you're on Google, when most people search on Google, you go up to the top, the more reviews you have. So now I have 35-star reviews, which I'm really happy about, and I have great clients that have been so kind and referred me to other people. And yeah, I've lived in Carlsbad my entire life, so I have a huge network of people. That helps too.
Awesome. So what typically look like? Somebody calls you for the first time. Like what's a normal phone call?
So I'll get a lot of inquiries through my website now because people will find me on Google and then they'll go to my website and look at the pictures, which are sadly not super up to date, but that's something I want to work on. And then they'll send me a form and they'll say, I have this need or that, or I'm looking for this or whatever. And sometimes it's, I just want installation of turf or something. And so I weed those out, but I try to have a conversation with people just to make sure that they are realistic on what a landscape costs and what a design costs before we go out and have an actual, in-person meeting. So I talk to them, 10, 15 minutes, get a feel for what, where they're at in the process and what they've done so far and what they're looking for. Make sure that it's a good fit. Then I'll schedule a time to go out and walk the property with them. I do that free of charge right now because I just think that it's a courtesy, and most of my clients are in North County, so it's, I try to do it on the same days and whatever. So that's fine. I'm doing that right now still. And then I'll give them a proposal for the amount of time that I think the design will take. And I have it kind of broken out into the different phases of the design, measuring, building concepts, meetings, talking through the design. My design process is very collaborative because people know what they like. They know how they like to function in their yard. Most people that I work with are renovations. They're not new construction. So they've already lived in their house for 2 or 10 or 20 years. And so they know, that corner gets really loud, or this neighbor, we need privacy from them, or we love to do this in our backyard or whatever. So they have all this insight that I don't have. So I try to make sure that I get all the information that I can and, give them options, but really try to talk through all of those options because at the end of the day, it's their yard forever. I drive away and I want them to be happy with what they get. I don't put my design on them. I try to give them options, and really it's a lot of collaboration.
Yeah. And I can imagine that's very helpful for them because it's maybe their vision that they don't even know what they necessarily want. So you come in and really unlock what they've really been hoping to get out of their outdoor space. Totally. And are you doing the softscaping, hardscaping as well, combination of all of that?
Definitely both. I mean, it depends on what the client needs. Sometimes they have existing hardscaping that is good and that they like, or that they don't necessarily want to spend to rip it all out and redo it. Mm-hmm. And so they just want to get all the planting, refreshed and looking good again. And then other times people are ready for a full scale remodel and they're ready to rip it all out. And I mean, sometimes it's in bad shape. There's been cracks in concrete and, walls failing and all that kind of stuff. So it just depends on the client, but I definitely do both. And, once we kind of have a concept, I'll take them to look at materials because that's a really important part of the process. I like them to see the actual materials. It's hard to look at pictures online and get a feel for what it actually is, So I take them to nurseries and rock yards and, paver yards and all that kind of stuff. I love those days. It's fun. It's like shopping with someone, with someone else's money, and they have feedback because it's they see this and they're like, oh, that's terrible. And then they, you just never know, especially with plants. Plants, I've learned, are so subjective. It's actually funny. Some of the comments that I get, they're like, well, that was in my first apartment and I hate that plant. And that was at my grandma's house. And it's just a random assortment of associations that people have, and it's super, super interesting. So I've learned that just because it's, fits into their Mediterranean or their tropical theme that they think they want, we have to look at the plants. Yeah. So after that, then I usually help them because I don't do any construction. So I help them meet with contractors, get the bids. I have a lot of great contractors that I work with that I trust and that we have great working relationships. So I pull them in depending on the project size and where it's located, and then usually I try to stay on during construction because I like to see it through. Depends on the extent of the project and whatever, but I always like to be there at least on planting day because and some layout questions with walls and patios and stuff. It's good to have the designer on site when you go from a 2D plan to the 3D world. So yeah.
So how has your kind of approach to things like shifted over the years? Obviously 8 years in, it sounds like you got this stuff dialed in, like even up to shopping day with the customer. Did you always do that, or was that something that you like changed and learned over time? Like, were there things that you used to do that you no longer do? Like how has your journey kind of shaped to what it is now?
Yes, I mean, it's changed a lot. I started out as a super green designer, no pun intended, just not knowing anything really, having my degree, but really no experience in actual construction. So learning, the hard way through experience and just asking a ton of questions. But no, I did not. I used to send my clients to the nursery and to the rock yard, and that was just overwhelming for them. It was really hard. They would come back with more questions than answers, and I was like, okay, well, this is something we need to do together. And my drafting skills have improved a lot. I've also I taught myself 3D modeling this year, which was something I resisted for so long, but really at the end of the day, it wasn't that hard. It's so silly that I'm not like a techie person. So I just wasn't, but I had so many people ask me, and I was like, all right, I need to do this. So I did that, which was great. So that's another thing that I offer, it's really helpful sometimes for people to see it, and we can meet and actually like make changes in real time and make like little adjustments and stuff, especially with small yards. It really helps when you're moving things a foot or two here or there. And then my pricing structure has definitely changed over time. I used to just give people a flat fee. I didn't feel like I could say, well, also, I didn't know how many hours it would take me. So I didn't feel comfortable saying, well, this is my hourly rate. And, I just didn't know how many hours it would take me. I wasn't very good at tracking that. So I started tracking for a while and realized that I wasn't charging enough. And then I just switched to an hourly rate and said, because you just never know with some people. Some people, it's like marriage counseling. We're meeting. It's like a 3-hour meeting and they're arguing because they've lived in the house 25 years. And I'm just like, okay, let's get back to rocks. Let's get back to wall material. How about turf? But I'm here for it. I love working with homeowners. I love the process, but I don't want to rush people, but I also need to be compensated. So I switched to an hourly model, and it is amazing. So much better for me. So much better for them too, I think, because they're more efficient. They're like, okay, I'm paying you by the hour. Let's get it done. So that has probably been the biggest change pricing wise. And then, it's just the design process has evolved slowly, and I've just realized what works, what doesn't work, what steps I need to take, where I need to hold their hands, and just kind of, it used to be more organic, and now I've gotten more of a system, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
For me and them.
So you obviously work with the homeowner, but correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you work with a lot of other people too, kind of through this process, whether it's contractor or like, I would imagine you build probably some relationships with the nursery or the rock yard people that are there. Like, so what is your relationship like there, and how did you build these? I imagine like over years you kind of like obviously have your people, but walk me through like that relationship part of your business.
So as I've gotten busier in the last few years, as my kids were getting older and I was working more, because before I would have 4 clients a year and I wouldn't always use the same vendors. So, you just show up randomly and they don't remember you. But as I've gotten busy over the last several years and I'm showing up multiple times to this, every twice a month to the same places there, I'm like, oh, hey, Will, hey, Armando, whatever. And you just, being kind, I think, and respecting people, giving them, time to give you back what you're asking for, not being impatient, and just, respect and then giving them business. So not just going to the place and then, maybe buying it online or whatever, but then, patronizing those places and returning materials. I've noticed like you can borrow these boards with all these tiles on it, but then you got to bring it back. So things like that with like rock yards and stuff, and just showing up and saying hi. I have thought many times, I'm like, oh, I need to bring them cookies or something, but I also, not everyone is love language is sugar.
Yeah.
But it just has not worked out. But just trying to be respectful and, giving people, asking how their day's going, just being kind. Yeah, overall. And then with contractors, it works out great because a lot of my contractors don't want to design, but they need someone to spell it all out and put every detail.
They don't want to do the design, or they don't want a design?
They don't want to do the design. Okay. They want a design. They want a plan because, a lot of people are like, well, we want a new fence here and maybe a wall with a couple steps and some plantings and, redo this grass. And it's like, well, that's all fine and well. I can sort of give you a bid, but there's so much more to it. There's so many details, so many little details that we go through. So a lot of them send me business, and then when it's a couple of months later, and then I say, okay, well, Mark in University City is ready. Let's go. We'll meet there next week. And then we meet them, and, they originally sent it to me, then I sent it back to them. So it's a really good working relationship where I don't want to do construction. They don't want to do design. So it works out great.
And for like on the contractor side, do they always like nail your vision, or is there like any kind of like pushback and like, no, we said we were going to do it this way? Like how, any kind of friction there?
Generally, no.
Okay.
They're not like redesigning. Sometimes I have a couple people that will make suggestions and say, well, did you, usually we have this or whatever. And it'll usually be like, well, we talked about that in the design process. We thought about that. We decided not to do it or whatever. And then a lot of times, I am not a contractor. And so they'll say, well, construction wise, it's, we can do it this way, but it's super expensive. If we change this, jog this wall, I just had that happen. Whereas instead of making the wall straight, we jogged it out 8 inches and then sent it back. It's like, he's like, that is going to save us so much time with redoing the footings and lifting the fence and da-da-da. And I was like, that's fine. We can do that. That is super. And so I welcome all of that kind of like saving money with construction, because I don't do that I do designing, but I'm not in the construction world as far as like building it. So I am always asking for like, is there a way to do this? Same idea, same feel, but, easier for you that's going to, make it less expensive for the client.
Love it. So
yeah,
when it comes to like the design and like you're walking it through with a customer, I imagine let's say for the first time, I'm really interested in, because I'm noticing everybody's using it now, but how many people are coming to you with an AI design and said, hey, can we make it look like this? Like, have you had any experiences with that yet?
I have had a few. I had a gal who called me out and she was like, well, this is what ChatGPT gave me. And I'm like, and I go, this is not what she told me that she wanted. And I said, well, do you like it? And she goes, no. Why are you showing me this? So not terribly. I think AI is not quite good enough to create a full, design yet. And I have also had people who've done online designs where they do some kind of drone mapping and then do some kind of design, but it's like they don't like it and they've already paid for it. So I've had to then redo the design. I think people still want that personal interaction, that personal touch. I just don't think, I don't think we're there yet as far as the technology. Maybe if you're flipping it and you don't care, and you're doing it as a rental or something. But for most homeowners that are going to live in the house, they want it done right. Landscaping is expensive. It is expensive to do almost anything. So it's like, do it once and do it right. And think through all those options, Yeah. So, yeah. But I have had people where they've given me something that's like, well, this is an inspiration. And I'm like, great, that's helpful. I like that, whatever elements that are going on, that's helpful, but they still know they need a designer. So it hasn't taken too much business yet.
Cool. I don't imagine it's going to. I mean, you're the expert, you're the visionary, and it's one thing where AI can I don't even want to say come up with ideas, but it can put things together, and it looks nice. It's very nice and polished. And I know, like, for some of our landscape designers, obviously everything ChatGPT or otherwise it's going to spit out is fully bloomed plants at all times. Like they'll put plants in places that may, from a design standpoint, maybe in the shade that can't grow in the shade. But that's kind of what you get with the AI design renderings. It's almost a little bit of unrealistic expectations in some sort.
The plant ones are probably the worst ones because it's like they'll have, a 3 or 4 foot bed and there's like 3 different plants in the depth. And I'm like, this physically cannot happen. Like, there's not enough space. So that's probably the most frustrating one, where I have to say, like, limit the space is a thing, and we can't put 3 layers of plants in a 4 foot bed and have them be fully grown, salvias or whatever. It's not physically, it's not going to work.
Okay, so I want to transition into something that's a pretty major conversation right now in California, Zone 0.
Yeah.
For somebody listening who's never heard of the term or understand that from the outsiders looking in, can you tell us what it is and why everyone's suddenly talking about it?
So obviously, wildfires is a huge issue in Southern California, and we've had some devastating wildfires that have caused insurance companies not only to take notice, and I've had many people tell me, clients and friends, that they've been dropped by their insurance or they've been, just dropped, number one. I mean, I think, I don't want to say the company name because I don't want to get it wrong, but a huge company, like, just completely pulled out of insuring in California in the last couple of years. And then I've also had people say, the insurance company sent a drone and they're saying we have to get rid of all these shrubs along the side of the house and these vines or whatever. So there is, in early 2026, they started implementing this Zone 0, which is the first, if you think about a structure, the first 5 feet horizontally from the structure, and that includes pergolas and decks and anything that's attached to the house. So that was mostly for new construction, and it wasn't fully fleshed out, like, exactly what that Zone 0 meant. It was supposed to be non-combustible, but there was some, like, variables still, and it wasn't fully, passed, I guess, the legislation. Interestingly, 2 days ago, they passed, August 19th, they passed legislation that now is much more nuanced, which is good, much easier to stomach, because what they originally said was the first 5 feet past the house, you can have nothing combustible, no plants, no wood mulch, no tree limbs that, pass that invisible line. So that's really hard. I mean, it's not very attractive either. So, and a lot of people don't have huge yards here. So that could really cut into your walking space and all that kind of stuff. Although if you have a path right next to your house, a concrete or DG or rock path, that is a great use of the space because it's non-combustible. So now what they're saying is the first 1 foot has to be non-combustible, rock, DG, pavers, concrete, something that's completely uncombustible. And then foot 1 to 5, there can be some vegetation, but it's very limited. Has to be under 18 inches, well irrigated, like lawns or succulents, or, you don't want a big hedge or something, nothing woody or resinous, something that's, because I guess the embers near the house is a lot of times what causes the fire. It's not always a wall of fire coming at the house. So it's mostly for new construction right now, although there is a 5-year phased in kind of compliance period for existing homes. So it's something I'm definitely have been talking with my clients about this year, because it's not only that and then there's also like 3 different jurisdictions. There's City of San Diego, there's unincorporated areas of San Diego, and then there's multiple different cities within San Diego, and they can all have their own different rules. And it also depends on if you're in a high fire prone area. So there's a lot going on there. It also depends on how far the eave goes down. So there's a lot there. It's pretty complex. It really is dependent on each person, but that's basically what Zone 0 is that first 5 feet around the structure, and that's really what they're looking at. The next 5 to 30 feet is the fuel modification zone, they call it. So they're more looking for, like, a break in tree canopies, not like a fire ladder where it's like low shrub, high shrub tree where the fire can just climb right into the house. So there's a lot of, and it has to be well irrigated, well maintained, thinned, no dry brush, that kind of stuff. But you can have at least wood mulch and things like that in that zone, and plants. You just have to be smarter about it and follow the rules. And it really depends on what area you're in. If you're in a tiny townhouse surrounded by concrete and you're far away from canyons and you're not in a high fire zone, it's probably not going to affect you. So it's very, very specific to the property and the home. But it is definitely something, 3 or 5 years goes by really, really fast, as we know. So if you're redoing your landscape and you want to do it for the next, you don't want to do it again in 5 years, it's something to think about. It's something to look towards. And especially that now that it's only 1 foot, that's a lot easier to stomach than 5 feet with nothing.
Yeah. So does this make your job harder? I mean, I imagine any regulation makes your job a little bit harder, but I'm interested, like, does it make it harder in the sense of design and making it look beautiful and like trying to avoid just having a 5-foot moat of rocks around every property?
Yeah, I mean, yes. The short answer is yes, it makes it a little bit harder because you have to just follow more rules and think about more elements when you're designing. It's not just for beauty, which that's part of the fun of residential landscape is you're not dealing with ADA compliance and, different things like that. You're just painting and it's mostly for fun. So it does definitely just makes you think differently about it. And it's fine. It's great. I mean, I think that it will actually spur a lot of people to change their landscapes because there's a lot of people that have big 4-foot woody hedges right up against their house. And it's not just going to be the regulatory agencies, it's going to be the insurance companies that like both try to get that, remedied.
Do you have like your design style like that you kind of build around this whole Zone Zero thing? Like, do you have like an approach that you're like, I love doing this and most people love it as well? I
haven't had enough clients that have had to do it. 2 years ago, I had a client that was in the Lakes neighborhood in Rancho Santa Fe, and they're a shelter-in-place community, like for fire. And I had never heard of all of these fire, but Rancho Santa Fe is a very wealthy community and had like a lot of rules. So we had to basically abide by these Zone Zero. We had to have no more than 3 trees in a row, and then you had to have a break. You had to have the mature canopy be less than, I think it was 25 feet from the house or something. This was a huge house. We had the space to do that, but it really complicated things because, people see pictures and renderings and they're like, I want it to look like that. And it's like, we can't put a tree right there because it's not allowed. You won't pass fire. So I did do one, and that was my first experience with it a couple of years ago. And then it really started picking up this year with all the changes that are happening. So, and I think just the environment, the fires have really just change things. And it's so important. I get it. Like, it's terrifying to have your house be in a fire, in risk of being burned. So it's really important, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I have like a specific style yet, but there's lots of things that you can do. It depends on the client, how much space we have. There's so many different variables that I don't have like a specific style yet, but I'm working on it. It's gonna be a lot more people having to deal with that.
So in terms of like what you're seeing, like, are people asking for anything related? Like, are people calling you because of that? I don't know how much, I don't want to say care, because obviously everybody cares for the best for their area, but like, is it becoming a more common thing? Is it something that you constantly have to educate people on, and you're getting to a property and then they're finding out like, oh man, I'm not able to execute on a vision that I had?
I would say it's like half and half right now. There are some people who have heard something about it and they don't quite get it. Also, it's recently changed. So, and it's a lot of, before it was really for new construction. So most of my clients are existing, like North County's pretty much built out. There's not a lot of open space. So there's, very small new construction happening. But I would say it's about half and half. And then when I mention it, people are like, oh, I think I heard something about that. Well, a lot of people want to follow the rules. They want to not get their insurance canceled. So it's definitely something that once I tell them about it, they look it up and they're like, oh, okay, well, since we're doing it, let's do it right.
Okay, so I'm sure this is going to be a tough one. It's going to be like choosing your favorite child, but do you have like a favorite project that you ever worked on? Like something that always stands out that you're super proud of?
I had a client last year that she had great style. They were willing to spend money. It was a cool house, and we ended up doing, they had weird pavers that we thought that the husband didn't really want to get rid of them because they were in good shape, but then she was like, let's just get rid of them. And so he acquiesced, which was great. They had teenagers, so it was like kind of fun. We were able to make some different spaces, like teen spaces, and then she wanted this really cool patio cover and deck. She, it was beautiful plants, olive trees, and, salvias and lavenders. So that's when I think about that. And also the lady was just a dear lady. That was probably one of my favorites as far as like client. They were also really close to my house. That was nice. And it just turned out really good. They were super happy with it. So yeah, I liked that one a lot. But so many of them, honestly, a lot of my clients, I feel like become friends. Not actually, but like we have such a good relationship by the end. Because really, I spend a lot of time with people and you get to know them, and you have to, it's part of my process is like, how do you live in this space? How does your family function? I have a lot of people with kids, and I want to make sure I'm giving them something that's going to work really well for their family for now and for going forward. And that's going to last.
So I'm sure you're happy and willing to execute on anybody's vision, but is there like a design trend or something that you just like roll your eyes like, oh, here we go again, like that you're over?
No, I wouldn't say that. Most people want Mediterranean landscape. They want, white roses, olive trees, which is great. So most people want that. Occasionally, honestly, it's more the weird ones that are like, okay, let's get weird. It's your yard, I had a lady who she was putting like rocks and shapes in her front yard, like just making all these weird shapes and stuff. And I was like, it is your house. You can do whatever you want. I am here to advise you and help you and pick materials. But if you want to make a moon out of rocks and that's your planter, have at it. So, but again, it's like, who am I to say that you can't have that? I'm not going to say that. So I try to give people what they want. Most people have a style. Very rarely do I walk into a house and they're like, I have no idea what to do. And then, you're starting from ground zero, and usually they have some kind of, once you start showing them photos and styles, they're like, okay, I like that. Lots of people say, I want no maintenance. I'm like, well, then do we want no plants? Because plants are maintenance. So, and some people do, like they just choose very minimal plants, artificial turf, a lot of rock, and I get that too. I'm not great at maintenance, so that's fine, but it's not as fun, but it's fine.
Do you have any
I try to give people what they want.
Do you have any of like your personal touch that you like recommend pretty frequently?
As far as materials or plants?
Materials, plants, anything like something that you like, let's say is like the Megan signature.
You say that, no. I have a list of plants that I know well that work. So I do kind of tend to stick to a similar plant palette. I love when people say, I love succulents and I want to do all succulents because that's all I'm able to grow at my house and because they're super easy and hard to kill. So I have a lot of knowledge about the habit, the way that they grow, how to care for them. So that to me is exciting. It's very colorful. It's super fun. The shapes are great. So I would say, no, I don't have a certain go-to because everyone is different and I don't want all of my designs to look the same. Because all of my clients aren't the same, Maybe at one point people will come to me for a specific design style, but I don't necessarily do that right now. There are very limited materials. It's not like an interior design where there's infinite materials to use and to go, just so many colors and paint and all these things. It's like there's a certain number of pavers and there's really two paths with color. With hardscaping, it's like you kind of go gray blue or tan brown. So it's like, people usually want to go one way or the other. And then you kind of build around that. So I love to use Belgard pavers. I love the colors. Typically people love the colors, but we use Orco sometimes. And we look at Angelus and, different brands, but there's a very limited number. So it kind of makes it easier because you're not, people aren't finding random things on websites. It's like there's only so many options.
Yeah. Do you have like a kind of project that like you get really excited about when one comes across your desk?
Yeah, I just had a family that was so cute. They had little kids, and they're like 3 and 4 or 5, like little kids, maybe 2 and 5. And they had a pretty flat backyard, and they wanted to it was a strange landscaping. They'd bought the house as is, and so they wanted to redo it, and I'm watching the kids play, and I remember having little kids, and we had just enough space because they had like patio and then lawn beyond it and then a wall and fencing. And I said, what if we, just bear with me, what if we built a little like 2-foot track, like a little racetrack around the perimeter of the grass? And they were like, I'd never seen that before. We had friends who had that in their house, like when the kids were little, and we would go to their house and the kids would just round and round and round for hours. And I was like, a lot of people that I work with are older, so they don't have little kids. So I was so excited to be able to introduce this concept, and we did a little platform. They had a huge ficus tree in the back that they didn't want to get rid of, which is fine. It was massive and probably going to cause problems, but I explained all that and they still wanted to keep it. So we did a little platform, just the kids could climb up and just hang out on the platform. And then this little track, they totally bought in, and they were going to do it. They're under construction this summer, so I haven't seen the finished product, but the wife emailed me a little clip, a little video of them, because they were kind of doing that around their existing, like, little tiny hardscaping. The kids were on like a little bike together, and she's like, they're going to love this track. And I was like, yes, they are. So I love helping families to make something fun, something that is not something you see every day, but, and it's not going to be ugly for, when they get older or anything. It's just flat. It's not like there's anything terrible. It's just a little walking path then at that point.
Yeah.
But, and it's just narrow, but I was really excited that they wanted it, that they had little enough kids that I was like, this yard fits this. And it was really exciting. And so I love working with young families, especially because it's just fun. They get to enjoy the yard for years, and kids are great.
I love it. What a fun, thoughtful, intentional build out. So really cool. So after 8 years designing spaces, other people, what have like other clients taught you that like kind of make an outdoor space feel more like home? Like has your design, has your approach shifted over these 8 years?
Well, yeah. I mean, other than just learning more about, the details of construction and how things work and all of that kind of stuff from coming from really not knowing a lot about that. How has it changed? I mean, just exploring more. So when I do concepts for someone, I'll lay out the bare bones of what's staying, the property lines, the fencing, the house, and then if they have existing stuff that's staying, trees or whatever. And then I try to do like, one version that's probably what they're going to like, and then another version that's like a variation. And then I try to do like something a little off the wall, like, what about this? What if we did this? What if, just try to just think of something that's more interesting, more different, and sometimes, and usually when we look at those 3 concepts, they'll say, well, I like this part of that one, I like this part of that one, and that part, so we kind of cobble together a design from 3 ideas. So just feeling more confident in myself in exploring, like, because you just never know what people are going to respond to. So just exploring more outside of the box thinking,
I love it. And that, I'm sure that keeps it like fun and fresh for you too, and you get to like stretch your creativity. And I mean, obviously it already sounds like you have a lot of like really creative things, and taking into consideration who you're working with, whether it's a family with kids or it's a really lovely other lady that you talked about on your other one. So I love that you're getting to craft their visions mixed with your creativity as well. So
it's really fun. I love getting to know people, and I mean, most people are awesome to work with. And it has to be a good fit for both of us. It's a long process. It's a couple of months, and then construction too. So that is another reason why I go and meet people, because I don't have to work with people. I'm not bound by the law. Just because you called me, I have to work with you. So it has to be a good fit for both of us. We have to be a personality match. So most of my clients are lovely and wonderful, and it's been such a great career. I just feel like I stumbled into something that is so fun. I didn't even know it was a job when I was, 18, 20. I didn't even know it was a thing. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
I love it. And I love how much you very clearly love it as well. And now you're getting invited on podcasts because of it. So
Exactly.
well, Megan, it was great learning about you. Thank you for sharing all that, your experience, the history, how you got here, and the journey all the way up to where you're at now. If you could, just to kind of wrap us up, can you just tell us who you are, what's the name of the company, and who do you serve?
So I am Megan Lowe with Megan Lowe Landscape Design. I'm based out of Carlsbad. I love working with clients, residential clients in North County, San Diego, and I love working with clients who are open to suggestions, who are looking for either a full remodel or just a refresh. I have lots of clients who are, just not looking for the full demo and everything and just want to refresh. That's great too. But yeah, I love working with people. I mean, honestly, living in North County, everyone's in a pretty good mood most of the time. It's kind of like living on vacation. We live in a resort area, so most people are happy, but yeah, I love clients. I love people who want to just make beautiful spaces and understand that a landscape is a living, breathing thing, and it's an ever evolving thing, and it's beautiful and it's functional, and I love helping people. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Megan, you are amazing. Thank you for, again, sharing your experiences. And if anybody else wants to learn more about her and her business, it's mllandscapedesign.com, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. Check her out. And yeah, again, thank you for being here. That's going to be a wrap, though, on this episode. So if anybody watching this got something out of it, please feel free to share it with others that you might think would also be interested in learning more about Megan, but also learning more about what she's done and how to also get into that space as well. So Megan, thank you again so much for your time. Amazing talking to you, learning about you, and just getting a chance to go through your history.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Matt. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to know you a little bit and talk to you and talk to your podcast listeners and hopefully reach some people in Carlsbad and the surrounding areas.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, everyone.